My name is Richards, and I have my PhD in Applied Linguistics and Technology. And the way I have applied most of that degree mostly has been in teaching English to international students, and for this presentation, most relevantly, teaching research writing to master's and PhD students who are wanting to move into academia and be publishing research articles in English. One of the things that I have observed in my several years of teaching research writing to these students is that a lot of times the key thing that limits their ability to actually have access to journals, to have their papers easily published, is not really that they don't know how to structure a research article. And it's not really that they don't know how to express their ideas in the research article, as much as it is they struggle with being able to self-edit their English in a way and to a level that makes it acceptable to a journal editor who will then pass it on to a reviewer. A lot of my students and a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends are facing a barrier to being published in the international research journals, which are primarily English medium, that native speakers of English do not face. And it's an unfair barrier, but it is a real barrier. And this concerns me a lot. And so over the past several years, I have been working on developing techniques for training non-native English researchers to be able to effectively self-edit their English writing. And I've made, I think, great progress in working this past year one-on-one with researchers, maybe an hour a week for an 8-week period. And I've seen my students make great leaps in their ability to do two very important things. The first is being able to self-identify a possible non-standard English phrasing, way of expressing their idea. Then being able to figure out, okay, is it said this way? And if it's not, how do English speakers normally express this idea? And so I have been facing this problem of I'm seeing my students one-on-one make progress, but that's not scalable. And so I needed a tool that would enable me to allow students to practice that self-identification step of where's, this sentence, does it have any English problems? And then the step of, okay, this is where I think the problem is, and how can I figure out what more standard phrasing would be? And ThinkSpace offered the perfect solution to this, because what ThinkSpace allows that I had not seen in any other tool that I had been exposed to, and so I was ecstatic when I discovered ThinkSpace, was that ThinkSpace allows a student to be able to put forward a hypothesis. I think the mistake might be da 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 da. And then they type whatever they think the mistake might be, they commit to it, and then they can move forward to the next phase, and their answer carries forward, and they can compare their response, their self-identification of the non-standard English phrasing in the sentence, to an expert editor's identification of the non-standard English phrasing. And they, through that, can build some sense, habits, intuitions regarding standard English phrasing over time and over multiple exposures of this training process. Now they can practice the next step, which is what is a more standard way of expressing my idea. And so again, they're able to use the search tools that I teach them how to use, and they can play around, try to figure out using those search tools, what's an efficient way of finding the answer to my question of how should this be phrased? What is a standard way of expressing my idea? And then they can enter their hypothesis again of, I think this is the fastest, most effective way of identifying standard phrasing, and I think this is how it should be said. This is how it's usually said in English. And so this ThinkSpace allows me to train students both in the process of self-identifying non-standard English phrasing, building their intuitions, and building their willingness to say,
might not be right. Let me check it out. As well as actually building their ability to figure out, if this isn't standard phrasing, what is? And because it allows, through the carry forward feature, immediate ability for students to compare their own hypotheses with an expert editor's analysis, and step by step then to build their proficiency in both self-identifying non-standard English phrasing and more standard English phrasing, moving them toward the ability to self-edit their own research writing in a way that will allow them access to the international English medium research journals that for many of them right now are out of reach.